Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, kind enough to join us on short notice. We just came up with the Spring Football League with the NFL, and I want to know, do I need to explain it to you, Mike?
Well, I assume, if they play football in the spring, it's a developmental league. How many teams would you have in it?
I've got 8 teams, and I have 4 NFL teams that own this or, use it as a feeder system. So I've got Portland, Vegas, San Antonio, Albuquerque, Birmingham, Hartford, maybe Orlando or Richmond, and St. Louis.
If they believed they could make money doing it, they would do it. I mean, that's the bottom line. They did NFL Europe, and it had like 17 different names. And ultimately they realized this thing is bleeding money. We just don't want to do this because it costs too much money. And you would think that it would be a lot cheaper to do a domestic spring football developmental league, and it would be great opportunities for quarterbacks, guys like Kurt Warner, who developed in NFL Europe, for officials, coaches, executives, etc. I just think ultimately the owners look at it and say, why do we need to do this? You can say we need a developmental league, but the regular league is doing fine. The best players emerge based upon the reps that they have available to them in practice and in games, and if there's guys out there that would be better if they had a chance to develop, that's not our obligation to provide it to them if we're going to lose money doing it. And I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. They don't think they're going to make money doing it, and they don't believe that they're going to make appreciably more money having more players who are developed and ready to go in the games that count.
Wow.
So I love the idea. I'd love to see an in-season minor league where guys get called up and sent down, and there's teams that run the same systems, and they're ready to go, and they're getting live reps, and they improve that way. But I think the owners look at it and say, what's in it for us? Why are we spending this money? We're really not going to make any more money by having these more developed younger players.
I'm also curious about what you thought when we had Antoine Randall L. on. This is the day after the article in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette where he talked about the end of the NFL, maybe 20, 25 years down the road, that he could barely walk, go up steps, down the steps. He had memory issues. Then we have him on, and he seemed to walk back everything that was brought out in this article. So did people jump on it because once again, we're talking about concussion, like they want it to be true, like this is the end of the NFL and another player that is young and he's scarred, permanently disabled. Like it took off, and then all of a sudden we had him on, and there was none of that drama attached to it.
And this is always a tough minefield for me because anytime I say something like this, the blowback is, oh, you're on the NFL payroll and you're going to say what you have to say. I mean, let's be realistic. There are people in the media who would love to put the NFL's pelt on its wall and who would love to have a hand in the demise of the greatest American sports league we've ever seen. Whether it's because they don't like football, whether it's because they just want to get the accolades and the praise from their colleagues, whatever the case may be, there are people out there that would love to see the NFL diminish. We'd be foolish not to admit that. So anytime a Chris Borland retires, it's a big deal. Anytime there's a former player who says, I regret doing what I did, it's a big deal. Meanwhile, 99.99999, continue the nines indefinitely, percent of the guys out there either aren't walking away from the game now that they even fully and completely understand the risks, or the guys who have played, who have orthopedic injuries and cognitive issues. To a man, they say, I still wouldn't do anything differently. I still enjoy what I did, and I wouldn't change a thing. Antoine Randall L. is as rare of an exception to the rule as Chris Borland was. So I think that's why it becomes noteworthy, and then it gives some raw meat for the people out there who don't like football or who want to be responsible for its demise to jump on and say, aha, well, 20 years the game's going to be gone. And that's just not realistic. Did you see the numbers from the divisional round? Do you really
Yes.
think something that draws in 41 million people on an early Sunday evening is going to go away anytime soon?
We're talking to Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com. The Orange County Register's Jeff Miller painted a pretty dim picture for the Chargers in L.A. What am I missing with this, Mike?
Well, Bill Plaschke had something earlier this week as well on that point, that are there any Chargers fans in L.A.? And there are plenty of Rams fans, and the Rams were wise to get the head start. I look at it this way. The NFL has thrown an extra $100 million into the pot for a stadium in San Diego. And Dean Spanos, the owner of the Chargers, is going to have to write a check to the NFL for $550 million to move his team from San Diego to L.A. That's $650 million right there that can be used to build a stadium in San Diego. And then on top of that, you're going to have to, if you choose to partner with Stan Kroenke, you're going to have to write a gigantic check for half of the stadium construction costs. So why not just say, you know what, fine, the ruse is over. We're no longer going to be able to get taxpayer money to build stadiums, especially in San Diego or anywhere in California. We're just going to pay for our own stadium. What's wrong with a billionaire paying for his own stadium? I understand that people like to get free stuff, and it seems like the people with the most money are the ones who most like to get free stuff. And if you've got a scam going where you can get taxpayer money to build your stadium, you should do it. But if the taxpayer money isn't there and you run the numbers, don't you at some point realize I'm probably better off just building my own stadium in San Diego? And it very well may be that that's what Dean Spanos ultimately concludes.
Well, what kind of list do you have of teams that would want to step up to be part of that relocation with Los Angeles?
Well, if the Chargers don't do it, Dan, then the Raiders get dibs. And I think Mark Davis would love to do it. He, in a heartbeat, he would do it. And I was told last week by someone who was in the room for the presentations for Inglewood and Carson that Inglewood's presentation is so good and that project is so attractive that there are teams who currently have very stable stadium situations in established markets would jump at the chance to join Stan Kroenke and Inglewood. Now, it's one thing to say that in isolation because of the quality of the facility. You still have to compete with the Rams in the L.A. market, along with 2 baseball teams, 2 basketball teams, 2 hockey teams, USC and UCLA. See, that's the thing. Every passing day, the Rams are getting more entrenched in that market. So you're going to be the Clippers. And I guess the Clippers aren't really the Clippers anymore. The Lakers are more like the Clippers. But you get my point. You're going to be the B team in L.A., and you're going to become the C team or the D team if much more time passes because the Rams really have struck a chord there, and whoever jumps on board is going to have to accept the fact that, you know, we're just the kid brother that no one really cares about, but hey, we play in a great stadium.
Yeah, I think the Raiders would have a bigger draw than the Chargers, so I think they could go in and not feel like, you know, we're that much of a step, you know, the stepson here.
I think the Raiders are the only ones that can pull it off, and anybody else would be the clear second fiddle to the Rams. And you know, kudos to Stan Kroenke. I mean, the guy didn't say a word. The guy pulled it off. And now, as the dust settles, it's like, man, this guy finagled one of the great sporting coups of all time, and he owns the L.A. market. And it may ultimately be him and the Raiders again, and I think he'd be fine with that because the Rams are going to be the top dog, it looks like, going forward.
Before I send you on your way, explain to me what happened with the officials with the Patriots game against Kansas City, and they left footballs at the hotel with the pressure gauges. How is this?
When you leave a hotel, don't you always do that one last walk around? Right? And usually it's something like a toothbrush or my wallet. I'd like to think when you do the last walk around, a bag of footballs is going to be fairly conspicuous. So somebody just forgot to do that one last check before the door closed that one last time.
Wait, Mike, come on. This is inexcusable.
Oh, it's definitely inexcusable.
In New England.
Only in New England. Only in New England. But it all worked out. We didn't find out about it until after the game. It didn't affect the outcome of the game, and it's fitting. It's the NFL, once again in New England, presiding over a complete and total mess.
Did the Colts call and say that they left the footballs?
Yes,
like who alerted the NFL?
Yes, it's the integrity of the game requires that the footballs make the trip with the officials. Who knows? Maybe the plan was to substitute other. Who knows? I don't even want to start down that path. Somebody's going to think I'm serious.
Thank you, Mike.
See you, bud.
Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk.